recording. And we're going to go ahead and get back into a share screen mode here. So let me, I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop. All right, so with that, so here was our celebrity interview. We just finished. All right, so lean movies. So this week, actually, we talked about the movie last week was the Gimba Academy 5S video. 5S, one of my sort of a go-to tool for a lot of organizations, especially when they're first starting out in lean. It's real hard to figure out what's going on and what you need to improve when you're working in the midst of a huge mess. So a lot of organizations use that 5S process to sort of clean things up so you get some visibility as to what's important, what's adding value in their processes, and then focusing. You know, it's also, you know, based on what Steve was and I were sort of talking about, this idea of discipline. So if you can't get people to keep their workplace straight and neat, how can you get them to manufacture or provide world-class services? So with that, any questions or comments on the lean movie this week, which was on 5S from Gimba Academy? Judy, you got a question?
Yeah, I'm not trying to sound negative here, okay?
Okay.
I gotta tell you, I don't clean for anybody.
All right.
You know, I don't scrub floors.
Yeah, sure.
I think the first example that they showed was the chairman of the board or some
Right,
such.
was washing the floor.
The CEO washing the floor, and how all of the merry little workers came in 30 minutes early on their own time to clean and dust and all that other good stuff.
Yeah.
And I understand the concept of, you know, team building and pride of place and all of that good stuff. I get keeping personal spaces and group spaces neat and functional and you know, even optimized. I don't get a value on an ongoing basis of insisting that people you know, make a long day, generally a long day these days,
Sure.
even longer, to do household tasks that they don't even do for themselves, or if they do them for themselves, they don't do them as well anymore because they're doing them at work.
Yeah, and I understand that, Judy. I think, you know, maybe for you and maybe there's some other folks like you out there, the place to maybe start with the 5S is with the first two S's. So start out with the sort out, right? Or that first S where you're getting rid of the unnecessary stuff. And it's real core to lean, the idea that says, okay, we're trying to produce value for our customers. Everything that we have in our workplace ought to help us produce that value. If it's not there to produce that value, we have to question sort of why it's there. You know, I know there's some organizations that go over the top and would say, okay, why do you need to have, you know, 5 pictures of your kids on your desk? You know, isn't one enough or whatever? You know, keeping your employees happy and keeping them, you know, respected, that they have lives outside their business. I think that's also an important thing to keep in mind. So I don't go to necessarily that extreme, but this idea of okay, if it has value, we're going to keep it in the workplace. If it doesn't, we're going to get out of it. So that's sorting out idea. Now, the way that it rolls into the next S is that if it is in the workplace and it has value, then it pays for us to invest in systematic arrangement. So if we've got tools, invest in shadow boards, invest in the proper shelves, the best way to organize and keep your equipment. And if those are the only 2 S's that get you going, you know, I think that's a good step forward. You know, I certainly believe in the rest of the S's, and we can have a longer discussion there. But I also believe in starting where people are at, and I think that idea of sorting out to just the value-added stuff is important.
That makes total sense to me.
Yeah. But and if that's where your comfort lies, you know, go with that. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And Michael, did you have a hand raised or you want to make a point?
Yeah, I sort of agree with that too. I thought the example was
Extreme?
kind of, well, no, actually, I was going to say elementary because they're just
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about, cleaning up this simple office or, dealing with like a storage closet or something like that.
Right.
And the organization that I worked in was way extreme. It's like we've got stuff back there from 1940 when the
Yeah.
company started,
Yeah.
and it's good. It's just like a big warehouse of stuff. It's like this daunting task to clean it out.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if it was going to get a little deeper, and kind of start analyzing inventory and kind of determining what stuff you need. Like if there's spare parts for equipment, do you keep them? Or when do you make the call that it's not worth the money in inventory to keep it?
Right.
I know like Pepsi, I heard, I think it was last year, the year before, they saved, thousands of dollars just by cutting their inventory down
Yeah.
and making that change.
Yeah, and I think it can go there. It's not generally where companies start with that 5S, sorting out, keeping only what has value things. I think where you can get into that, where it might go is, so if you had that sort of larger discussion, right, and said, okay, now we've gotten rid of unnecessary tools and fixtures from the 1940s, we got all that stuff out, and then you turn your attention over, and then what about this, dead inventory, stuff that's not turning or stuff that's been on the shelves for a long time, and you bring the right people in to have those discussions, and maybe you mark all the inventory that you're questioning. Why do we have this? It's all got a little, maybe a little Post-it note or something on. You say, okay, let's walk all the management team by it, have this discussion, and then make some tough decisions as to whether you're going to keep that stuff or get rid of it. Actually, just to know, this isn't the only thing where I'm working on my vacation. I actually spent 2 hours with the warehouse manager at Yosemite, walking through his workplace, and there were several things that sort of came out, but certainly the 5S housekeeping sort of came on as an issue for them, and it's real hard to tell, what inventory is good or bad when also sort of all the workstations are all cluttered and the aisleways are piled high with old inventory and things. You just don't know what's the valuable stuff for your customers, right?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. I also wondered, because you can sort of organize things a couple different ways. And, do you do you organize parts by machine, or do you organize stuff by kind of categories? So like, bolts go with bolts, or do they go with the machine they go to? Or like motors go with motors, or do the motors go with the machine they go to? Things like that.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk or look at the next session where we're looking at different flow charting techniques, value added analysis, or value added flow charts, and things like spaghetti diagrams. You could probably figure out, which one is sort of the best way, through some analysis technique like that. And also another sort of ready thing that I guess from old operations management, and you can also consider sort of a lean sort of approach, is an ABC analysis from inventory. So you've got, high runners are things you want to keep close, maybe, in that sweet spot between, knee level and eye level for employees to be able to get stuff that's your B inventory. Maybe that's medium term. That's stuff you have to check out from a tool room, or you have to walk a little ways to get. And then you got some C inventory, or things that maybe even keeping off site or in a different building because you only need it once a year, or during some sort of annual cleanup or changeover. So there, once you sort of know sort of what the criteria is, you look at that bolt or something, and you say, okay, how often do I need this, and therefore based on how often I need this compared to the other things, where should this thing be? Certainly from a searching standpoint, having all the bolts together makes a lot of sense, but maybe searching isn't the only thing that you're going to have as a criteria. Ravi, you got a question or comment? Hey, Ravi, are you there? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Professor. I have a quick question. We have for example, we have about 30 machines.
Hey, Ravi, you're breaking up a little bit on the audio.
And sometimes I talk about lean to our employees. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. We have about 30 machines at our floor, CNC machineries, and we have a lot of, like Michael said, like we have a lot of stuff to be cleaned up.
Oh, yeah.
And whenever I talk to, whenever motivate our guys, they say I'm not I'm not paid enough to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I try to motivate people. I try to encourage. We have to keep our shop clean.
Yeah.
But I do myself go even voluntarily. I put extra times and clean up stuff, and then it's lasts for about a week or two, and then again back
Right.
going back. I don't know, for this scenario, how can we fix the 5 years our shop?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a few things going on there. I think one thing is, at some point, the people, the operators sort of need to see the value of keeping their workplace straight. I think everybody likes to work in a clean and organized workplace. I don't know anybody that sort of likes to work in the middle of a mess.
Right.
So they need to be sort of convinced of the value.
Eric, you got to meet my dad.
Oh, yeah. As in an exception or the rule?
As an exception, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, but I don't know. I've sort of I've done a lot of 5S type Kaizen events and activities, and it's not one that doesn't sort of people appreciate coming in there the next day, and you'll get people saying, hey, I've hated that for years. I thought I was the only one. I encourage you guys to take it for a spin, take it out there. Maybe it doesn't sort of work out. Ravi, it sounds like you've had some experience where it hasn't always worked out or stuck. That's where I think that standardization part comes in, where there's some sort of weekly accountability. Maybe managers or employees work around, look at each other's workstations, and make comments or offer suggestions on how things might be improved or made better. I also don't think that 5S really, it oughtn't be an extra hour activity. It ought to be, part of during the workday, right?
Right.
This is part of your job. This is not in addition to your job. So your job is not only to kind of keep your place organized, but it's also to make value for the customer. Okay.
Right.
All right. So any other comments or questions, or are we ready to move on here? Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So tips and tricks, just want to highlight, some of you may have already sort of seen this. As you go through the MoreSteam training, there's tutorials, right, on how to use Engine Room and little videos. If you want to get to those videos without trying to flip back through the pages and try to remember, oh, was this in session 12 or was it in session 5 or where was it? If you go to the Engine Room Help button and then scroll down, and you'll see something called tutorials. So those tutorials are actually sort of the help screens. They'll pop up, and you can see you got help screens on how to do, let's see, do we have, let's see, X-bar R charts here, gauge R&R, right? So if you want to go back and kind of get a refresher on what gauge R&R is or how to do that in Engine Room, you can go ahead and click on that. So that's the tip or trick for today. So here we go. Here's the highlight reel, session 6, measurement system analysis. And I think as Judy said, this is something you might have to do a little extra sort of work on it. And it doesn't necessarily come naturally or easily. So you might have to study up on this. I will say that to do due diligence to your role as a Lean Six Sigma green belt or black belt, anybody can, look at a ruler or a set of calipers and read off a number. It's the job of the Lean Six Sigma person to come in and say, hey, well, do I really believe that measurement, right? And that could talk to tool calibration. It could be issues of, collecting survey data, was your sample biased? All those things come into, like, really, do you believe your measurement system? And that's what this session is about, right? So measurement system analysis really asks a fundamental question: do I believe these measures? That's where this is going. Gauge R&R studies for people that are black belts and green belts. This would be something that you would be, potentially expected to do if you work in a manufacturing organization, right? This is kind of a bread and butter sort of thing. The green belt or black belt guy will get tagged with doing the gauge R&R study. In office type environments or transactional green belt folks, not so much, but the fundamental question still remains. This question of belief in the measurement system. So are there some ways you can check that out? The most recent example we were sort of using with that is that the thing where Laura and I were sort of looking at, well, how do we grade the movie quizzes and the lecture quizzes? Were we consistent? So one of the things you look at is consistency in service providers and service organizations. Does everybody do payroll accounting the same way? Do they ask the similar questions? What are the approaches? So that repeatability and reproducibility sort of shows up in that way and can be measured, maybe a little differently than a strict gauge R&R type study. Any questions about that or comments? Anybody want to raise? Takes a little work. Yes, Judy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that, because I think my mini project is turning into something that requires quite a bit of measurement system analysis. Okay. Since we're going from 0 to 60 and nothing flat with right. Time tracking, and I'm finding that many of the tools are just going to be pretty useless. Yeah. Not the lean tools, but the time tracking tools. They're going to yield really terrible data.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's exactly, it's your job to sort of ask that question and to point that out to folks, right? So
that's what I've been doing all week. It's quite exciting.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it'll bring you to a good place. And certainly, by the way, too, Judy, you don't need to solve the world's problems with this mini project, right? You just need to knock out these 10 tools. It's gotten you thinking. Maybe that's a longer term certification type level project or something, but just take it easy on yourself, okay?
Oh, okay. Thanks.
All right, good. All right. So St. Sigma Hospital. I'm going to take a little journey into St. Sigma Hospital. I think this is going to work for us. Actually, it's not going to work for us. So I just got a low battery message on my Mac. So I didn't plan for the battery allotment. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to, last week I had to abort the Six Sigma because of problems using a different PC. This time I've got power level problems. I'm going to put something together that maybe another video that walks through this St. Sigma thing, and I'll go ahead and I'll post it for you, but I'm not going to do it right now. You can go ahead and watch it later. What I'm going to do is walk through a XMR chart or X and range chart, so you can sort of see how that goes. So we'll start talking about that. But I'm going to go ahead and move on and try to wrap things up. So some hidden gems, defects per unit measure for the whole process. I think this is an excellent kind of measure that you would use, especially from a 5,000 foot level, if you will. before you dive in and find out exactly what your key problems are. But so you might have a process that has 10, 20 steps, and each step you're finding some different issue or problem. But by the time that part or that process gets to the end, how many defects do you have total per unit produced? So I think that's a real key measure. The other thing I really like is the cause and effect matrix. You could do an Ishikawa fishbone diagram, looks really cool. But with this cause and effect matrix, you're also getting some indication of the intensity of the effect by putting in these little pluses and whatnot, and actually get some sort of scoring here at the bottom. So that really helps. Oop, just sort of bounced off my thing. So that's it for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I will talk until my connection goes dead here. Any other questions from anyone before I lose connectivity here in Yosemite? Okay, go ahead and take care. Turns out I can get cell phone reception here in Yosemite, and I'm checking my emails a little bit. So I'll be watching that, but not real consistently. I look forward to talking to you guys from my office in San Luis Obispo next Wednesday. Okay, so take care, and I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now.
See you, Eric. Thanks.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor.